Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Byron Hepburn, and I'm the director of the Military Health Institute at UT Health here in San Antonio, Texas. And we're here at the beautiful Pearl Brewery area here for the third annual Combat PTSD Conference. And we're honored to have with us today Dr. Jon Kerstetter, who hails from Iowa. But he has an incredible journey that he's lived, and he shared that with our meeting attendees today. And also, he's really an American's American. He is a Native American who grew up in a Native Indian reservation and really had a very humble origin, but came from that origin and really overcame multiple adversities. Went to the Mayo School of Medicine, served nobly as an emergency physician in the Midwest, and also did humanitarian work in Rwanda and Kosovo, then served in the National Guard and had 3 deployments in Iraq, and we're very proud of all that, and his family as well. But he also had a medical event following his return from Iraq that he'll share with us a little bit this afternoon or today. And but what a compelling story, Dr. Kerstetter. It's been an honor to have you with us today.
Thanks.
You talked this morning a little bit about resiliency.
I did.
And how you perceive that you had that resiliency. Could you talk a little bit about what in your youth and in your childhood may have helped you become a more resilient professional?
Yeah, that's one of those interesting words where we toss it around. Everybody has a sense of what it means. But I also made the comment I didn't know I was resilient at the time, and sometimes it took somebody else pointing it out. Hey, you're overcoming all this stuff because you are resilient. And here's what I mean by it. So when my mom, I probably 4 or 5, my mother decides to move us off the Indian Reservation in Oneida, Wisconsin. We go out to Utah. And she's got a very small job as literally a scrub lady for the Bureau of Indian Affairs school there. 4:30 in the morning every morning, she gets up. We used to live in a gas station house, in the back of a gas station, and the whole backyard is full of weeds, a block of weeds. She said, "Now this is my land." So she takes it. She farms it. She grows corn, potatoes, radishes, you name it. Then, of course, we wake up a little later. We go out there and we help her. That goes on for years. And I see this woman alone, 3 kids, and I'm beginning to visualize what it meant to struggle and survive. So I think what happened in those early years, I began to kind of encapsulate what resiliency means. And she would always say to me, "Well, you never give up. And you have to keep trying, because if you don't, you die." To her, if you didn't survive, you died. That's why she had to leave the reservation. That's why she farmed that land. And that's why she had a 75-cent per hour job. And she had that job for years. Later on, when I was in high school, she'd grab me by the collar of my shirt and said, "Johnny, you've got to get an education." And what she was doing for me was translating, again, resiliency is the stuff that, if you want to survive in our new culture, because she said, "Look, we're not in the woods anymore. We're out here. We have to survive. Then you've got to learn something different. You've got to have a new survival skill. And it can't be just plowing the earth. It can't be just growing crops." And so those early lessons, I think, I build them in my brain, in my heart, my soul, my spirit. And then as I began going to college, you face those insurmountable things like classes that you actually have to show up for. and you go, I have to keep going. And then in that process of keeping going, what you discover is that, I can really do this thing. I thought it was hard, I thought it was impossible, but I can really do it. So against all odds, a young Native American kid off the Indian Reservation, raised by a single mom, first-time graduate in our family, not only from high school, from college, and then I go to medical school. Wow, now you're at Mayo. And for a kid like me, what do you do with that? That's power. The message itself of having arrived does something to the soul. When I go to Iraq, I finally become a soldier. I go to Iraq and become injured, but then I come back home and I have a stroke, and I lose my medical career, my military career. And I also have coexistent PTSD, so it complicates things. And some of my early therapists would tell me things that I didn't fully recognize 100%. I didn't know about the resiliency. And at one period of time, I was reading way back down to the 3rd percentile level, 3rd, 4th grade level. And I had to pick up a book of short stories every single day, and I would. and I'd read, and I wouldn't understand. And then I'd go back the next morning, I'd read again, and then again, and then again. And about the fourth or fifth time, I got the story. And it began to dawn on me that, hey, there's something to this repetitive action of coming back to the font of something that's difficult and attacking it and doing it. That's what I think resiliency is, of being able to say every day, I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I know what my input is, and that's I have to work. It's like my mom every day in that garden, 4:30, get up, work your knuckles.
That's a powerful message, and particularly for those in the audience that are health professionals.
Yeah.
That's an incredible
Yeah.
message for our future physicians, our nurses, our health professionals that are in the caring professions. But when you look at resiliency, and we talk a lot about teaching it. If you were going to give those are certainly some compelling points you just made. Are there any sound bites you'd like to give our health professionals on how to cope with this type of environment?
Sure. I probably the biggest one, I think, is that the clinician, the healer, the physician, the nurse, the whoever in the healing arts, when we talk about resiliency, they have to become a keen observer of the human spirit. Where does resiliency reside? I mean, is it in our fingers or toes or knees? Is it somewhere in our brain rolling around? We don't know exactly where it is. We don't know exactly how it's formed, but we do know this, that if we find it in a patient or as a leader of soldiers, as a commander of soldiers, if I find resiliency in the mind and spirit and heart of a soldier or a military person, a young Marine, a young aviator, I can turn the key. And all of a sudden, an insurmountable task becomes a mission and something I can do. I once had a young medic say to me, Doc, we can't do these medevacs. I said, why not? We don't have enough helicopters. Answer, get more. Well, that would mean that we have to involve another unit. So involve them. And I made this point at the time, and I guess I was kind of brash, but in thinking about it, it made a lot of sense. And I said, don't ever come to me again and say we can't do something. And then I said this, if we spend enough lives and break enough equipment, we can do the battle. Wow. Well, how do you translate that to healthcare? If we observe enough in the heart and mind and spirit of a patient, and we manage to kind of turn that resiliency key, we don't know how much the patient can accomplish. Earlier on in my therapy, therapists were befuddled because I lost so much. I wasn't really responding the first few years. I mean, in 1 year I went from the 3rd percentile reading to the 4th. Wow, a 1% gain in 1 year. That's not a whole lot. But in the next 9 years, they just tested me last year, I went all the way to 70%.
That's phenomenal.
So, but they didn't know they were going to spend 10 years of therapy. I didn't either. Because I had, in my mind, this vision that I'd go 90 days and I'd be done. Wow, really? I had no idea 9 years later the maximum amount of therapy would be experienced. And in those very first years, I was down in the single digits. My provider understood in me there was some kind of key to this resiliency thing. And he was able to turn it. He was able to motivate me, able to push me and say, let's go 6 more months. And I said too, yeah, what if we go 6 more months? So for our physicians in training, for our young physicians, for military and civilian alike, I think the key to resiliency, especially in Lockheed for patients, is to understand that every person alive probably has it in there somewhere, in their psyche, in their spirit, in their brain. And it's up to us as clinicians to kind of do some bridge building, take the first steps and say, you know what, take my hand, you've got to trust me, let's move through this together. And I think if we do that, then we'll pull off the miracle of all miracles.
No question. And
Yeah.
I think you spoke this morning about, you just did as well, that our health professionals have to be aware that sometimes this takes time.
Oh,
Tincture of time
Yeah.
is needed.
yeah, it's the tincture of time, and sometimes, you know, I used to be an ER. I used to be an ER doc in combat ER, so everything is in milliseconds. And I always used to joke, man, you know, I know a lot about medicine, but it's only the first 10 minutes. And at the 11th minute, I'm making a referral. Well, you know, every clinician has to be aware that all patients don't respond in 90 seconds or 9 months, but they might respond in 9 years. So we have to allow the patient to have enough rope to experience whatever clinical progress they're going to experience. The bugaboo is at day one, I don't know that as a clinician. And as a patient, I don't know that. I don't know what's possible in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. I just don't know. And sometimes clinicians or health professionals fall in this trap of saying, well, your prognosis is going to be blank. And then we tell the patient something like, you're only going to recover this much. You're in that 20% camp. How do you know that? How do you know that maybe with a little push, maybe with a little activation of my inner resilience, that I'm not in the 20% camp, but I'm really in the 50% camp recovery? See? What if I'm in the 90% camp of recovery, but somebody turns it off at year 2? That we have to guard against as clinicians, and actually it's a tricky thing. It's like walking that tightrope. We have to be real, but we have to be honest. And this is not pie in the sky medicine. It's me saying to the young soldier, I can't put your legs back. I can't put your biological legs back. But I sure as hell can teach you how to run a marathon.
Yes.
But it's going to take time.
And still give them that hope, but be realistic.
Yeah, and they have to have what I learned about myself in therapy was this. It was kind of interesting that I had to re-envision myself. I knew probably the first week after that stroke that I wasn't going to be a doctor again, but it was a secret, see? And some of the clinicians didn't want to talk about it, and I sure as heck didn't want to talk about it. As the months went by, it became very apparent that I wasn't going to be in clinical medicine any longer. Now, they couldn't pretend that that wasn't true, and neither could I. But they had to bring me to the table and say, Doc, what do you want to do? I said, I want my doctor life back. Okay. How are we going to make that happen? I don't know. Well, some realities are very hard-lined, and it's pretty stiff, and you can't bend it. So then they had to say, what else could you possibly do that you could still be a healer in?
Yes.
What? That's an alternative. Well, I'm not practicing clinical medicine, but if I write a book and I tell people about my experiences and what it is to be resilient in the face of so much trauma, then maybe I can still continue that. And it's kind of a Kerstetter version 2.0.
Right.
See?
You talked about this morning about transformation.
Exactly. Yeah,
And so
and that's
it
what it
speaks
is.
to that,
Yeah,
and
and,
having-
it's when we go through these injuries, when we go for PTSD, and nobody's immune. Every person alive is going to lose something or be transformed by illness or injury somehow, sometime. Personal loss. We talk about a transformation. Soldiers have it. When they come back, they say, well, here's your transitional briefing, because you're going to transition back to your old way of life. That's not true. I couldn't transition back to my doctor way of life after I had a stroke because there was no going back. I couldn't undo it. So the mission became, how can I transform myself? And once it became that, and I bought the idea that, it's not looking back, it's looking forward to what counts here. And then I owned my own therapy, then I really started making progress. Then the curve went like that. And I really started to learn things.
I'd like to know a little bit about how your family was part of this journey, your spouse, your children, maybe your close relatives, and what role they had in your recovery and your strength now.
What's interesting, because they all did, and my wife in the earliest stages of my recovery and stroke and PTSD, I had a hard time walking. I'd stand, I'd look like I was drunk because I had truncal ataxia. And I'd weave, and I'd be standing, somebody just fall over. I just fall over backwards. I just took a millimeter off, and bang, down I go. She cleared out a corner in our house, and she said, she always called me Doc. Doc, come here. You stand in the corner, and we're going to practice your balance. I don't want to. No, come here. Now she does a lot of exercise now with students and kids that have autism and Downs and special needs. She says, no, you come here. No, I don't. Okay, 1 minute. all right, come over for 1 minute. She'd stand me up. She'd hold my hands, press me against the wall. Perfect balance. Yeah, this is good. She'd let go. I start wobbling. Just put her hands back there. I'll quit wobbling. Take your hands away, wobble. So wait 1 minute. Okay, it's time to sit down. No, well, look, if we can do 1 minute, give me 2. All right, you got 1 more minute. We get to 2 minutes. She said, I'll tell you what, why don't we do 5 minutes and then we'll break. I said, you said we only had to go 2. Well, I changed my mind. She wasn't going to let me out of it. She was a good wife, a good therapist, a good partner, a family partner, because families are in the tricky business of pushing us to more than we think we are. I really believe that. And she said, no. And you're going to read the book like they told you to in therapy, and we'll discuss it like they told us. Yeah, but brother, I don't need this. So yeah, you do. Okay? She kept pulling me back to the center that said, we're revisioning you. And every illness, every stroke, every case of PTSD affects the family. It's not just one person involved in therapy. It's the entire family.
No
so
question.
she had to learn new ways to communicate to me. If she gave me a list of stuff to do, I said, yes, honey, I'll do it. But then, of course, I'd forget. 3 seconds later, that stuff would be gone. So she had to write it down on a list. Give me the list. You see the list? What's on the list? Tell me the list. Oh, come on. Tell me the list.
Yeah.
So she had to learn, I had to learn, and the kids from a distance said, Dad, we're with you on this. We'll support you, whatever you need. Extra time, come home for Thanksgiving, they'd spend extra time playing around, doing things, letting me take the grandkids. It was really interesting one time, because they were very afraid I was going to fall, pick up one of the grandkids. But instead of saying, no, you can't touch our grandkids, what'd they do? They say, Doc, why don't you put the baby on your knee and bounce him? So they modified it. I'm not standing up, but guess what? I still have the love of my grandchild on my knee. And it's the same thing my grandfather did for me off the Indian reservation. He'd put me on his knee and sing me songs in the Indian language. And I remember that I was doing that.
That's awesome.
And that was a powerful, powerful connection.
That's awesome.
Families are key. They're absolutely key.
No question.
Yeah.
And the extended community, probably.
Yeah, and it was the same thing with the veterans community. Oftentimes I find that, I could meet a veteran on the street, bump into him somewhere. We hadn't seen each other in years. How's it going? Oh, it's doing great. Wow, I heard you were in therapy. Yeah, I had the stroke, and it wasn't, oh, that's really bad. It was, is there something we can do for you? And it was extending the camaraderie of the military community. What can we do for you? I have a story about that. Let me just share this real quick. So, one of my best medics came back home, PTSD, and he was working at the VA. And he got hooked on drugs and alcohol. It was just a tough case. And I'd see him, I say, hey, listen, you need to get cleaned up. We need to do this. And if you can get organized, get with your therapist, I'll help you get in a PA program, physician assistant program. He says, yeah, let's do that. That's what we want to do. And year goes by, year and a half, and I find out he commits suicide. I'm stabbed in the heart. Then I started going down the list. If only I would have done this, if I'd have done that, what if I could have done this? And it just hit me so hard, because here was a young man, but every opportunity, he was married, had kids, took his own life. We didn't understand all the demons. But it struck at the heart of this one thing. It's absolutely critical to get our veterans into therapy. They absolutely have to be there. And they have to be in therapy teams that believe in them. And I don't know all of what he went through, because he didn't share a lot of it. But all I know is that I felt lost because he was lost. And it was like losing a brother. I had no relationship to him other than the military. He went to war with me. We went to war together. We were brothers in arms, and maybe that was it. So when one member of the community hurts, we all hurt. When one sacrifices, we all do. And we all want the best for each other. And I think that's the best community message there. If we all want the best for each other, let's find ways to drive each other into therapy and that
No,
therapeutic
that's a
community.
critical message for
Yeah.
our nation.
Oh, it
We
absolutely
have,
is.
less than 1% have served in uniform.
Yep.
So for all of our health professionals
Yeah.
to be cognizant of asking
Yeah.
that patient in front of
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
were you a veteran or do you have a close family member?
Yeah, that's a key,
And
that's a
to-
key patient question. The first one I get now, anywhere you go, well, have you traveled outside the United States? Well, yeah, I went to West County, Georgia, or something. And the other is, you gonna harm somebody or harm yourself? Why not ask, hey, have you served in the military?
Right.
That'd be an appropriate question. And if the answer is yes, then it gives the clinician the opportunity to do some very creative clinical exploring with the patient.
Yes.
That's absolutely key. Thanks for pointing that out.
No, that's powerful. Well, look, we have just a few minutes left, but I
Okay.
just wanted to give you the opportunity to have any parting comments to our broader audience. But your journey has been a powerful one. We salute you and your
Thank
family.
you. No, thanks so
And
much.
it's an honor to have met you, and hopefully we'll be continued friends in the months and years ahead. But I know you have a lot of messages to give that you haven't given. But if you have a few thoughts for our
Yeah, I do.
audience.
I have this, and it's basically this. If you're a veteran or active duty, and you are military service, you have been, and you know you need some attention. Something's going on in your life, whether it's PTSD, alcoholism, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is this. You need to step back, look in the mirror, and see that person for the value that they present, not only to military, but also to themselves and their family. And then you to turn around and walk into a vet center, walk to a VA, walk to your family doctor's office and say 3 words: I need help. And that's it. Now, it's a tough thing to do for an individual. We have big egos in combat. To say I need help is a big thing. But that's where it has to start. Whether it's physical help, mental help, spiritual help, you need to say, I need help, and open your palm. And then the person on the other end says, I got you right here. And that's it.
John.
Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you so much.
No, appreciate it.
Thank you, and I want to thank you and the audience today. Your comments about hope
Yeah.
and transformation and community, whether it be starting with the family and the broader veteran support organizations.
Good.
Very powerful, and we wish you and your family Godspeed. It's been
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.
God
Thank you
bless
so much.
everybody. Thanks a lot. See
Thank
ya.
you.